All right, everybody, and welcome to Pro Wrestling Wire Radio, part of ProWrestlingWire.com, WON Sports, and of course, now the AIWF Network and Helix Radio on Live365.com. I want to welcome to the show Bobby Blaze. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm doing good, man. Thanks.
Good, good. Of course, today we're going to go over your career, but I want to start with how you got interested in this, the world of professional wrestling. And of course, I know who your trainers are. I have that
Yeah,
right here in front of me. So, talking about training under Boris Malenko and Dean Malenko.
right. Yeah, I sure did. I had that pleasure of training those two gentlemen. Have a lot of respect for both of them and Jody as well, the other son, the older son. But yeah, no, I was a pro wrestling fan from an early age. We were talking off camera there about up east. I lived in Baltimore until I was about 6 years old and got the old, get my age away, got the old WWF back then, the old footage, Price Sheik and Bobo and all these, great wrestlers. And just watched on a big four model, newer color TV for that day. I had a grandmother that was a nurse at John Hopkins Hospital, and an aunt, and my aunt and grandmother loved it. And so I just sit there and watched it, until I was about 6, almost 7 years old. Then my family moved to Kentucky, and I totally forgot about it. Honestly, it's football, basketball, Kentucky's basketball, and I'm still young then anyway. And then I was about 10 years old, and my younger brother came running outside on a Saturday morning, and he was like yelling at me, "Robert, Robert, come here! You got to see this." And I went back into the house, and we had a little 19-inch black and white TV. That's what we had. So I went from the luxury of a big color floor model, and anyways, come back from a commercial break, and it was the end of Memphis wrestling. But my brother was so excited, he kept saying, "This one guy jumped over this other guy," and it basically was giving a rundown of the show as it was going off. So the next several weeks, we tried to plan our Saturdays to find where because I told him, I said, "That's pro wrestling." I said, "I've forgotten all about it." I said, you'll really like this. And so we had to wait a week, and about 2 weeks actually, we finally found it. And like I said, we had a 19-inch TV, and man, I just fell in love with it. My brother and myself, we just I rekindled. It had Jerry the King Lawler, and he was crazy about Superstar Bill Dundee, and Dundee done a sunset flip, and that's the highlight of the whole card. And then they had local wrestling come through this area, and man, my about 1975 they come to the National Guard Armory, and some wrestling did. They had in this area a little local TV show, and once I went to a live show, it's crazy. After that, I got old enough to. I lived by the Armory, so I went to every show there because there was a new company starting called ICW. So we got the Macho Man, the Miser, and Lanny Popo, and my man Hustler Rip Rogers. Them guys coming through all during my junior high years. And then by that time, I had a couple buddies that could drive, so we started going to like Huntington, West Virginia, Charleston, West Virginia, Lexington, Kentucky, some of the bigger towns to see different promotions. So I was just a fan all my life, and I had all the magazines. My one uncle in Baltimore, he would send us the cards that was inside the inserts, and we would do the same for him. And then we would save magazines. Sometimes we had some of the same ones, but sometimes we had different ones. We'd get together in the summers and trade or compare, just. And if phones being different back then they are now, if we got to speak to our uncle on the phone, and he was my brother's age and our age, we was all kind of close in age, even though he was our uncle, he's more like a brother. And man, hey, did you see? It was something about baseball, maybe for 2 seconds, football 2 seconds, but wrestling was like until mom's going, get off the phone. That's long distance, you idiot. But yeah, we just talked wrestling. That's the way I was always a fan. So loved it, still do.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, as a fan.
And what made you decide to do that, and how'd you hook up with the Malenkos?
Yeah, well, that's a long story, but basically, when I was in my teens, I was a basketball player, track and field, and I was getting ready to go to a practice with one of my buddies, and his dad had went out to start the truck up, and it was Saturday morning, and I was about 15. I walked by the TV, And one of his older brothers already watching it, and I was up, and I was like, I catch what I could before that truck got warmed up because I loved wrestling, And Jimmy Valiant was under. He was talking about Kingfish and coming to Mofo Town and this and that. And I thought, oh man, I didn't know what an angle was, but I thought I knew who Handsome Jimmy was, and I was like, oh man, that's Handsome Jimmy from New York City. And I was telling him, and his dad going, come on, the truck's warmed up, we got to go. And I said, well, I'm going to do that one day. You're going to see. And I was about 15. He goes, they call me Smed. He goes, Smed. He goes, you're crazy. That's pure crazy. He goes, them guys would kill you. And I said, yeah, they probably would, man. But there's something about it. So that's kind of a early seed.
Right.
But as I got older and I went to junior college for a couple of years, and I kept lifting weights, and I was going to so many shows that's unreal, and getting as much knowledge as I could. End up at the Malenko's. Give it a couple of years past that. Obviously, I wasn't 15. Go forward a few years, and I was out lifting weights and training, and sending out fillers to some addresses in the back of some magazines. I just sent old black and white photos I had from a gym of me lifting, a couple of colors, and mostly my athletic background, and that I'd like to break into wrestling. And I went to the Monster Factory. I drove up to New Jersey and had a little evening tryout set up. Wasn't anything special. I just went up there. I met Larry and I met Charlie, and they basically said it's like $2,500. Come and get your room this summer. I was teaching school at the time. Come and get your room this summer and train and see what you think about it and this and that. Well, I didn't think too much about it, to be honest with you. I was like, that's kind of far. Something else opened up. But in the meantime, a guy here locally said he would help me train some in the wrestling part of it. And I said, that's fine. But I got a letter back from a gentleman in Minnesota named Marvin Joel, and he had put me in touch with the Malenkos. And he said, the Malenkos are the best craftsmen in the business. And when I called the Malenko camp up, they had my information there, and it was a lady named Phyllis Lee. And of course, she was speaking with Larry, Professor Boris Malenko. And they said, well, the best thing we can tell you, again, I was towards spring breakish in school now, so April, Mayish. They're like, we can get done teaching this year. Come down, give it a try. We have apartments for rent and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, we'll see. So on that there, I knew two guys in Orlando, and they needed a roommate. And I knew it was about 90 miles, and a room wasn't open up at Tampa yet that I had a connection to. So I went on down to Orlando, and one Saturday I drove down to Malenko's, met them all in person, tried out per se, because I had about 12 to 15 matches up here in the hills of Kentucky and Tennessee, but they were just hardcore matches. Neither one of us knew what the hell they was doing. I said, put it together as a mountain brawl or street fight or whatever you call it, and I put my cowboy boots on, a bandana on, whatever, and we just fought, and always third match on the card, and I had about 10 or 12 of those until one day right before I went down Malenko's, I was in her. Someone didn't show up. I'm pretty sure it was Dutch didn't show up, but I could be wrong. But it's Buddy Landell, Jimmy Valiant, Hector Guerrero as Lasertron, and I got in the ring with them guys, and I was just like, oh my, this is a business. These guys are professional. You don't have to get killed, every night. And of course I wasn't every night anyway. I'm just saying. But so anyway, they said, hey, yeah, we don't have a room available, but soon as you want available, would you like to move down and train full time? And I said, that's why I moved to Florida for. I didn't pack my bags for 1,500 miles to deliver pizzas, which is what I'd done. I delivered pizzas. I sold suntan products for Panama Jack at the pools. End up getting on with a guy that needed a carpenter's apprenticeship installing carpets. And so he was training also. So I just worked out a deal with him and kind of paid for my lessons in. But, the first 4 months, I didn't miss. I got to go, well, from June, July, and August, I'd go down 2 or 3 days a week when I could. But once I moved down there in September of '89, going down to Tampa from Orlando, I went 4 days a week. My schedule was such that I could go 4 days a week. And I just caught on so much then and got in such good shape, and also built a camaraderie with Professor Malenko. Dean wasn't there at the time. He was going to Japan quite a bit during that time. Him and Jody both were. But for the first of the year there, I guess Dean came back and really accelerated my training. He come in and I remember him saying, "Yeah, Dad." I had another guy who was a pretty good wrestler and pretty good athlete too. And he got me and got Enrico. He said, "Yeah," he said, "Dad said you two are pretty good athletes and you got a lot of potential. I'll be working with you some." And man, I just hung on to every word Dean said after that. And we did a TV taping there for a show called Suncoast Pro Wrestling down in the Sarasota area. And I'd ride down with Dean and I'd pick his brain. And I'd listen to him. That whole thing of a veteran, you just shut up and listen. He would tell me stuff about Japan. And well, excuse me, Malenko's had guys coming in from Japan all the time training, and I thought, whoa, I had a couple of goals there early on. One was to be on Saturday night on WTBS. I thought, man, that's how I grew up because we eventually got that, and that made me a bigger fan to go back to the ICW and getting cable here and getting to watch the Georgia Championship and NWA. We eventually got WWF TV from another station, whatever those syndicated shows, I guess what they'd be called now.
Yeah.
Station in Charleston, West Virginia, picked it up. Yes, stay up late on a Sunday night, but you can find WWF content out there. But anyway, so that's how I met Joe, or excuse me, yeah, I met Joe, but I mean Dean and Professor Malenko. He kind of took me under the wing, and I rented a room there, and I just kept showing up, man, and training, and I could have asked for better trainers ever, and people to work with. That's one of the keys. I think I had the privilege of getting in the ring with so many different people that would come in and out. Some guys would be going back. Once I was there about 4 or 5 months, someone would come in. Like I remember one time, Brian Blair came in. He was getting ready to go to Japan. Brady Boone was getting ready to go back to WWF. Guys would come in and Larry would say, "Hey, work with Bobby. Just work with Bobby." And then take me to the ring and they just go over whatever they want to do. Well, while they're going to what they want to do, I'm learning it. So, it'd be something different than a regular training I was getting from some of these veterans, And then a couple of times, Joe would be getting ready to go back to Japan and him and Dean would work with some tag team stuff. And it was always an honor because Larry would say, "Bobby, it would be a Sunday afternoon usually." He'd say, "You do anything after training?" I said, "No, sir." He goes, "Why don't you stick around and work with Joe and Dean?" And so Rico and myself and the referee, Frankie Reyes, we'd stay after and work and just some of the tag team stuff. And it wasn't even 100%. We just go at it and work through stuff. But I was figuring things out, how to do this, how to do that. And they were craftsmen. I learned that, in this business, you could become a craftsman. And to this day, I think they're two of the best, craftsmen ever in the business. There's all kinds of wrestlers and there's good workers, but there's very few craftsmen that really know this craft and how to get things over in the ring. And that's just my training and took off from there. I think I went from the time I left there, it took about almost 2 years. I was had an opportunity to work at a really good job, and I left that job to still young, still single, no major bills. I had a car payment, and a contract opened up in the Maritimes, New Brunswick, and Halifax, and Nova Scotia, and then also Prince Edward Island. And basically, the same money I was making, but it was just cash every day, and of course, no insurance. It's one of those things where but you're young and you just wanted to, pursue your dream. And I got in a car from another guy. We drove up to Canada and we worked every day for about 18 weeks straight. Man, we just worked twice on Sunday, some days, and that was one of the best learning experiences ever. Being in the back seat of a car. Sometimes I drove, of course, my week, but being in the back seat and listening to someone that had the ring veterans like Leo Burke, who recently passed away, I heard about. I hate to do that because we're losing so many of the good veterans. But Leo Burke and Ron Starr, Goldie Rogers, Eddie Watts, all these guys knew how to work. They had worked all over Canada, Mexico, and some of them had been Japan at that point. So, I was got in the ring, green as can be, man. But I knew how to do things. But just because you can suplex someone doesn't mean it's the right time to suplex them. I was just telling some of the students I work with students, helping them breaking into professional wrestling now, and You just take a bump. I remember working way up in one of the very few times we worked up towards Quebec, and Leo Burke come out. We started the match, and he said, "Put your hand on my head," and I couldn't understand what he was saying, and people like French Canadian was way up there, and I was like, "What?" I put my hand on his head, and he punched me, and I just went straight down like I'd been shot, and it was a great bump. But see, you can't start the match just having a great bump. And he goes, "You just killed it, Bobby," and tag. And my buddy's looking over the rope. Rico's looking there. He goes, "You just killed the show, man. The match, rather." And I go, "What?" And he tagged me. He got in. They worked. They worked and worked. But then I had to hear about it. Dude, you took yourself out in the first minute of the match. You can't sell it like you killed you. It was just a punch, you know. It was just supposed to register a little bit. So, you learn something like that. Then I took another guy another night and I suplexed him out on the stage. We walked up there and I thought, oh, this would be cool. And he followed me and let me do it. And of course, I got my butt chewed out and I got back in the car to travel to the next town because Eddie Watts was going, Goldie let you do that, but that's not the place on the card. First match doing a suplex outside the ring is not where you do that. We know you can do these things. You proved that, but you have to learn the psychology, where to put these in at. And that's where I learned so much there. And I got to go back a second summer and work with all those guys again and work a lot of the same towns. You learn to appreciate the crowd and listen to the people and then how to take it up and how to bring it down. So that's where I contribute most of my success to, of getting to work in those territories at a young age and being on the road 7 nights a week, listening. And during that time, things came up. I got to go to South Africa during that time. Once I finished up over there in Canada, so I mean that's just a once in a lifetime thing to do. And then the following year, I got to go to Australia and work over there. So I started to travel some, And right when I got back from Australia, I had been in contact with Jim Cornette since I was in Florida. I had been in contact before his very first TV taping. As a matter of fact, Tommy Rogers put me in touch with him, and and eventually, and I met him in person. I was coming through here on the way through Kentucky. They was doing a town not too far off from me where I was going to Canada. So I stopped off and visited Jimmy in person. We've been talking on the phone. I got back from Australia, and sure enough, he gave me a tryout match. And Robert Gibson had hurt his ankle at one of the bigger shows, a show called Bluegrass Brawl. And Jimmy called me up and he said, "Hey, I need you on the road for about 3 or 4 days. Would you be interested?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "When Robert got hurt, uh, and that's when Robert used to drive in from like Pensacola, Florida. All the towns were like an hour and a half from my house." And he said, "I'll put you in first match with Dr. Tom." And he moved Tim Horner or someone else up in the card to work with Ricky against Heavenly Bodies, whatever. But I was first match 3 nights in a row against Dr. Tom with Jimmy managing. And I'm like, I can't screw this up. I mean, I've been in a ring with Dr. Tom Pritchard, and I'm going to show him I can work. And I did. And Jimmy and him, between Jimmy and him talking me through it, 3 really good nights that kind of secured me getting a job there. And the fourth night, I was sitting there lacing my boot. Mark Curtis come in and he said, "Hey, Bobby, what's your finishing night?" And I said, "Yeah, I guess I'll be looking at the lights, putting Tom over." And this was about an hour from my house. I said, "I'll be putting Tom over." And he goes, "No, seriously." And I go, "Yeah, seriously." He goes, "No, what's your finish?" I used to do a drop kick off the top rope. And I'd been working on the Northern Light suplex before I left Florida. I said, "Yeah." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, no, we brought someone in. We're going to put you over. I told you I liked you here." And I'm like, "You're kidding me." And Mark goes, "No, we got a guy." I go, "Well, tell him it's a drop kick off the top rope." I go, "By chance, what's his name?" And he told me his name was Mike Sampson. I said, "Oh." I said, "You know what? I'd worked with him on the independents. I knew who exactly was. Good hand, good body. Used to own a gym. Real nice guy, too. Good heart. And so first match, man, I went out there for Smoky Mountain. It's like my fourth night in. And dude, I had about a 10-minute match with a guy. And I said, going up top, drop kick, 1, 2, 3. And after that, Jimmy said, "I got some more bookings for you." And I just stayed there for damn near 3.5 years, however long I could, took some time off here and there. But I loved working at Smoky Mountain. That's how I got in with them. That's what really got me a big break in the U.S. with Jimmy. So anyway,
You started there in '93, and
yeah,
I actually watched that match that you're referring to with Mike Sampson last night. That's up on YouTube for anybody
Okay.
that wants to see it. So, um,
I didn't know
but
it's
before,
on there. Cool.
yeah, but before that, you did some squashes in WWF
Yeah. Oh,
under
yeah.
your
Yeah.
shoot name. So, do you want to
Yeah.
talk about that? How'd you hook up
Sure.
in there?
Yeah. Well, what happened? I'm glad you brought that up. So after my first tour of Canada, that they worked June, July, and August, and some in September because Canada's hockey and it's up on the East Coast. A lot of hockey starts coming in. The weather's
Right.
changing, so that tour only lasts through Septemberish. And I was coming back home to Kentucky, and I was going to go to Florida right after first of the year, if not sooner. That was my plan. That's the way I had things scheduled out. So I was sitting there watching wrestling one day, and I look up, and there's a couple guys I'd been in Florida with, doing, you know, jobs or enhancement talent or whatever for WWE, and I was like, damn, I just was with these guys a few months ago. How'd they get on there all of a sudden? Because I knew guys that done TV for Atlanta. I knew a lot of
Right.
guys come and went out of Tampa that done Atlanta TV. Bob Cook and some of those guys I knew pretty good. And but when it was Rico, my partner I'd been up in Canada with, and I just called him up right away. I said, Rich, what's up, buddy? And I forgot who he was wrestling, Barbarian or someone on TV, and a replay, of course, And I said, man, how'd y'all get in? He said, just call JJ Dillon. Malenko and him go back a ways. He said, they come to your area, just call them up and tell them where you've been working out because JJ actually worked up in that area we just got back from when he was a rookie and breaking in. And I said, oh, okay, cool. Well, I knew they was coming to the Huntington tri-state area, which is West Virginia, Kentucky, and Ohio, where I live at, southern West Virginia, eastern Kentucky, and southwestern West Virginia there. And they's coming to the Civic Center. So I just put on my best Sunday shirt and rode up there the day they came and knocked on the back door. And I said, may I speak to J.J. Dillon? And I told him my name, and he said, yeah, come on in. I went in the back. I saw several guys I knew. I knew Pez Watley. I'd known him since the ICW days. I knew I mentioned the earlier one, not just name dropping. I'm just people I knew. Like Brady Boone was there. I knew him in Tampa. So when you go in, someone a couple guys know you, they look at you like, this guy's probably not marking out back here because I wasn't going around, trying to stay. I was shaking him, but I was like, people I knew I was actually talking that knew I'd been in Canada. Oh, I heard you got to work for Leo. And so it was kind of cool. So I didn't feel like too bad, but also I knew I wasn't like, I'm not one of the stars here. I know my place.
Right. Right.
Uh, JJ just said, yeah, stick around. My brother actually went up there with me. He said, stick around and we're going to put the board up a little bit and we'll try to work in on something. And again, my connection was he and I spoke very briefly about Malenko, and he and I spoke briefly about me working up there where the Cormiers were at, Beast and Leo, and that
Right.
Maritimes, the territory up there, Grand Prix, I think what it was. Anyway, I'm sitting on a table, and just a table, not by the chair, but I'm just sitting there, and my brother's talking to him. We're just kind of minding our own business, and here comes Roddy Piper. And he walks by and he's dragging his bag, and it's just Roddy Piper. Like, whoa. And of all the stars there, but anyway, he walked, and he stopped, and he looked back at me and done a double take. And if you've seen the matches there, I had bleached blonde hair and somewhat of a tan, maybe not by today's standards, but for back for then, skin cancer tan, But yeah. So Piper turned around and goes, hey, kid, how are you? I go, good. He goes, who you working tonight? And I go, no idea yet. He goes, I've got an idea for you. You want to come with me? I said, yes, sir. So I hopped off the table there, and Piper and I went down a hallway, and we went into the back. So I'm in the back of the Huntington Civic Center, which I'd been in before. So I knew a little bit about it. But then we went back through another door. We were in a bathroom of the back room of the arena. He goes, well, stay here for a few minutes. I got an idea. I'll be right back with you. I said, okay. So now I'm really farther away from everyone. I'm kind of isolated, and not kind of, I am. And I'm sitting there and, time just kind of ticks really slow. And I'm going, I have been ribbed. I said, he's asked me to come back here and come in this bathroom and hang out. He ain't coming back, man. I said, I've been ribbed by Piper. I said, I'm best just go back out there and sit with my brother and wait for him to call my name. I don't know. And about the time I was giving up, I'll be damned, the door swung open. Here come Piper, and he goes, "Hey, Bobby, I'm glad you waited." He goes, "Here's Ric Flair." And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Hey, Rick, nice to meet you." And so Rick goes, "Bobby, I'm going to run this idea by you. And if you want to do it, Rick's good with it. Let me know." And they had been doing that deal where they had just chairs for Flair. And
Right.
so they have a chair match. It built up to who got the chair and they could use it and this and that. And so he said, "Bob, you got this look. You just kind of look like Flair when I come through there." He said, would you like to be a part of this?" And he goes, "What'll happen is come out, we'll have a match, and then at the end, I'll get the chair." And he goes, "I don't have to hit you with it and anything like that." He goes, "I'll just come at you if this chair's for Flair and you skedaddle." And I was like, "I love it." So Flair goes, "All right, give it to me, kid," because Roddy had told him I could impersonate him. And I was so, woo, and I started doing the jet flying, limousine riding. I cut that about as best as I could for the both of them. Of course, they both kind of laughed, and Flair looked at me and went, "Well, you're no Ric Flair, kid." He goes, "But let me tell you something." He's pointing to his nose. He goes, "Let me tell you something. If you go out there and take that bump, turn your head or your nose will look like this." So he went like this, and I go, "All right, I will." But I didn't take that bump. But anyway, I thought that was cool. So we went out there, and on the way out, Piper's like, "Now here's what I want you to do. Just get on me, get on me, get on me." And I've been hit by chairs in Canada for every other week with a hairspray can, cigarette get put out on you. They was just killing me, walk me up a chair, back shot, cover, head shot, whatever it was. Because every week you're in the same town, so you have to do a program, boxer versus wrestler, a cage match, whatever it was. So whatever your main was, you're just following around the
Right.
TV. So anyway, we're staying there, and Piper goes, I go, "What do you want to do?" He goes, "Well, you call it. You're taking the bumps, just whatever you want to do." And he goes, "Then I'll come up and I'll grab a chair, but I want you to be going over, and I won't hit you with it." And I said, "It's okay. I'll take a chair shot from you. It don't matter." "No, no, we'll work it out." And so as we moved up to the line there, we're at the gorilla position there, and he goes, "Hey, I want you to do me a favor." He goes, "I'll be raising hell with you." He said, "I want you to lean through the rope and just spit right in my face." And it's about the third time. I have a running joke that I'm a pretty good spitter. People say, "Well, I don't know what your audience is like, but Bobby's a spitter. I don't swallow. Sorry." No, because it goes
This is
back
not
to
a
Piper. It goes
it's
back
not
to
a censored show. So it's not a censored show. It's not censored, the show.
Okay,
So
well, anyway, I said I'm a pretty good spitter, and I know Australian country boy kind of thing, spit good. I'd aim at something, spit. And he goes, "No, really, just spit right on me." I go, "Okay." I mean, I wasn't going to cough up some big hawk or loogie, you know what I'm saying? But I thought,
yeah, yeah.
this guy's want me to spit in his face. Well, he come out there and he grabbed the chair and he's yelling, "This kid thinks he's Ric Flair," and he's just berating me, and he gets close enough, and I spit, man. It just slow motion. It's like the Seinfeld episode with the hanging loogie, the magic loogie. Man, I just boom, and I splotted just Piper, just a big glob of spit right in the side of his head. Man, he looked up and he took his time and looked at me to kill me. He wiped his face off, and he come in there. As soon as he did, I told him I was just going to get on him and call whatever come natural. So as soon as he come through, I started glomming. He said, "Get on me, get on me, get on me." And so I just started hitting him, and I started doing turnbuckles, and I said, "Just ride it out." And he just kept taking turnbuckles until I said reverse. And when he did, I fucking just took the backdrop, fed into the bulldog, and I rolled over for the 3 count. He said, "Get ready to move." He went outside. He got a chair, but he didn't get one of those metal chairs that you work with. Only thing you grab was one of them big cushion chairs at ringside.
Right.
So I see him grabbing a chair, and I start to go out. And right as I'm going over the top rope, he barely brushes my backside of my butt just with the top of the padded chair, just enough to give the indication. And so I just land on my feet, turn around like, whoa, and start walking back because it's not my show anyway. He's standing there at the chair, like they're popping, and he thanked me, and everyone in the back thanked me. And after that, they said, "You want to go to?" I went to Indiana with them. The following month, I went to Ohio one night and Indiana next, like border states there. Wrestled El Matador, Tito, and wrestled Kerry Von Erich,
Right.
Tito.
That's yep.
And then I went to Florida. That was in like Novemberish, maybe early December. Well, I was already planning on moving to Florida right before the first of the year, right after Christmas. But I'd already accepted bookings in Florida for them. I was going to be there. My plan was going to be there just help my brother move and stay there for a couple of weeks, maybe around to about the 10th, and see how things were going at Malenko's, if I could pick up training there, what was going on. So I went ahead and took 2 dates, and one of them was in like Daytona Beach, I think, and the other was, excuse me, Fort Myers. And one of them I wrestled IRS, Mike Rotundo, and he beat the living snot out of me. That tape was highly edited because he just whooped me from pillar to post, and then done the finish and asked that. But anyway, I got paid. And they took care of me and all that. I ended up staying in Florida, and within about a month later, I ended up going to South Africa. So I picked up some bookings over there and went over there for almost a month. And that was enough bookings to get me by to know that, okay, I can come back to Kentucky and get back to Canada, just kind of work all these in. So but that's how I got to do the enhancement talents. The jobs for New York, I actually had two more planned up in the Panhandle. Another group of guys were going to go up and do it. They had a couple of guys from Tampa that traveled different. So a couple other guys that weren't on the shows I was on, they were going to do the Panhandle like in about 2 weeks, and I was going to ride up with them and get on those shows. But I called the office and I said, told them who I was, and they go, "We don't have you down there. Don't worry about it," because they have other things in their mind. I'm sure they had other people calling in. They didn't have me calling in for that particular loop or anything. It's two shows up around Fort Walton and up in that area, the Panhandle area. But again, no one knew I was going to do it except for whoever was that night. I called the office in Connecticut or whatever. But anyway, they said, "Yeah, don't worry about it. You're not actually scheduled. It's not an obligation." I didn't want to burn a bridge. And you don't know any better anyway. But because I was going to go to South Africa like the following day, that's how soon that deal came through. Ron Starr was in Atlanta. They wanted Rip Morgan and Jack Victory. They had some obligation with Atlanta or something. I may even went back to New Zealand for something. I'm not sure. And they had put Ron in touch with this guy in South Africa, and they needed people there ASAP. And the next day, I was on from Tampa to Miami, Miami to London, London, Johannesburg, Johannesburg to Durban, and then all over South Africa. So that was an adventure within itself. Had
Yeah.
to get the U.S. Embassy to get me out of the country. It was crazy. Riots and wild stuff going on there. But yeah, that's how I got to these different places. And I'm gonna go ahead and bring it up for a cheap plug for my book, Pin Me, Pay Me. All these stories are in that book because I do a section where I'm in South Africa. I go to England eventually, uh, Smoky Mountain, of course, and I just talked about the different, pretty much everything we're talking about now. I try to do it as most chronological order as I can. So when I finally got to, try out with WCW eventually, um, how that came about, because I could have been there several months before I actually started under different agreement, different terms, and elected not to go until a contract was offered. And I thought that was pretty smart. I got that right around the time Smoky Mountain was shut down. Jimmy went to New York and was doing TVs and stuff.
Right.
He had called me and asked me if I wanted to do some TVs, and they're going to be in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is a couple hours away. Then Huntington, West Virginia, again, like 20 miles away. And I told him what was going on. I've been speaking to Paul Orndorff quite a bit, and Terry Taylor some, and Jimmy said, "Bobby," he goes, "all I know is I can get you X amount of dollars for 2 nights work, and it's close to home." He goes, "The thing is," he goes, "I I can't tell you who to put you with." He said, This is really funny how he said it, because it's kind of what happened to me in WCW toward the end." He goes, "Man, they could put you in there if Al Snow or Sean, you could tear the house down like I know you can, or they could put you in a sit and he'd just eat you up. He goes, I don't have any control over that for this TV. And I said, well, here's what's going on. And I'd also been talking to Japan at that time. And he said, Bobby, truthfully, he goes, if Paul Orndorff told you that, he goes, Paul's a straight shooter. He said, if they're thinking about bringing you in, he said, I'd hate for you to show up on our TV for just a paycheck because it's going to hurt you down there, if they got other plans. Now, yeah, we're talking other plans. I said, I'm talking about, a 50-50 deal where I'm going to win some and lose some and not sure what's going to happen on a bigger show, but I'm just talking about Saturday nights only right now. He goes, well, if you're talking to Paul, it sounds like you're talking pretty serious. He goes, I can't tell you what to do, but I wouldn't show up at our TV. And I said, yeah, it's just kind of what I wanted to hear. He goes, and I always thought you'd fit in down south so much better. He goes, I always thought you was an Atlanta guy. And I said, okay.
Right.
So Jimmy kind of gave me that confidence too. And I knew more people in Atlanta. I knew the Armstrongs from Smoky Mountain. I knew Brad and Bullet, and I knew so many more guys that were down there. So anyway, that's how I got it. Then I got a tryout with them several months later. Took a couple, 3 tries to actually get to the tryout. But once I did, everything was good. So I stayed there for 3 years, and
Yeah.
during the biggest, the rivalries, the Monday Night Wars. Someone just pointed this out to me a couple of weeks ago. Like, man, you were there with a TV contract when it was the most popular thing on TV. I'm like, well, all right, I guess I was. That's nice to know. So anyway, go ahead, ask me whatever you want to know, man. I'm here.
Wrestling was extremely hot at that time for what, 3 or 4 years in the
I thought I had a
1990s,
drink
leading
beside me. I apologize.
leading.
I thought I had a water beside me. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. What?
Wrestling was at its peak at that time there for like 3 or 4 years, from like
Mm-hmm.
97 to like 2001, and it was
Yeah,
just pretty incredible. And you were basically a part of that. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Working, WCW, doing the Saturday night shots and
Yeah.
pay-per-views and stuff. So you got to wrestle, and I don't know what your thoughts about me bringing up this name is, but you got to wrestle Chris Benoit and Eddie
Oh yeah,
Guerrero at.
yeah. Well, I knew the tour I was on in Australia. Benoit was on that tour, so I got to know Chris back then. And very first night there, I knew who he was. I used to read the sheets we was talking about. The Observer. I used to read the school down in Tampa. Someone bring one in every week. We read them and this and that. And I knew Dean went to Japan quite a bit, so I saw him on tape before. We used to get the VHS from Japan. So I'd seen some of those guys work uh, because Dean would bring the tapes back. And so I was in Australia the first night. I spoke to him here, there, to Jim, whatever. First night we're there and we're talking, and I'd already worked and he'd already worked, and um, he he asked me about Atlanta, and I said, yeah. I said, I've been talking to him, but I'm pretty sure I'm getting ready to go to Smoky Mountain Wrestling. I said, I'm in talk with Jim Cornette. He goes, why not? Why would you go to Atlanta? I said, hell, they just probably beat me anyway. And that's what I said. And Chris was dead serious, and he had his tooth out, and he looked at me, and he goes, well, you too fucking good to do a job? And I went, whoa, ho, no, wait a minute, man. I said, that's not what I said. I said, they would probably just beat me, but where Jimmy's taking me, where Jimmy's at, I said, I could probably get used in a good spot. And he just started cracking up laughing because he broke me. I was like, damn you, man. So anyway, he goes, I'm doing chest tomorrow. You want to meet me in the gym? I said, yes, sir, I do. So I hung out with Chris most of that tour whenever I could. I picked up something from him and Dean and Joe. Everything I could pick up on that tour, I was right there just listening. I went to the gym for legs with Joe, so I learned, went to chest with. I just went to the gym and learned different routines while we were on that tour. I picked out someone different, said, "Hey, can I work out with you?" And I'd watch the matches every night. So yeah, what happened with it's kind of I'll tell you a story. And I got to work with Eddie 2 or 3 times, which was great. Got to work with Dean before, but with Chris, the first time I wrestled Chris, something really weird happened. There's a whole interview out there with Dan Severn and myself talking about a gentleman's agreement, and you have to have a gentleman's agreement sometimes to work these matches. And anyway, I kind of threw it out there because I feel it's important that you have that. Well, I was on uh, my name was on the board, but I had not seen the board yet. I'd still out in catering or whatever. when I come back, my name, they said, hey, man, you was on the board. They took your name down. I said, okay. So I'm sitting there getting dressed, and Benoit comes up to me and goes, Bobby, come here, I'll talk to you for a minute. Well, I stood up, and he started talking to me very intense. He was just like, now listen, here's what I want you to do. You're going to work with me tonight. He just started telling me his stuff. He goes, you're going to lay it in there. You're going to do this and do that. I go, yeah, yeah, okay. And I was just, he lock, and I remember Chris or Dean and Eddie standing off to our right. And Dean turned around, walked over. Eddie goes, everything all right? And Chris goes, yeah. And Dean goes, we thought y'all were shooting over here. Chris goes, no, we're all right. I'm good. I'm good. Because Dean would have said something, honestly. He wouldn't let it got out of hand. He'd said, won't you guys talk this out? Or if it had been something. And I said,
Right.
no, I go, Dean, I'm good. He goes, okay. And kind of, treat me like a man. He's like, okay, you're on your own. I at least offered, like, no, we're good. And Chris is just like, and he goes, when you hit, okay. So he goes, I'll get with you. He goes, everyone should do, think about this when I get with you about 5 minutes. I said, okay. So he come back. He said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I do this. I do this. I do the knee. I do the, where I get them underneath the ropes. I hit them with, he said, I want you to do all that and lay it in. And he goes, I'll cut you off when I want it. He said, the only thing I'm going to tell you is two things. When I bend you over, I'll say knees, protect your face. He said, I'm going to throw knees at your head and they're not coming in slow. I'm going to shoot on you. I said, that's fine. He said, protect yourself because I'm saying knees. I said, I got you. And he said, the cross space at the end off the top. I said, yes, sir. He goes, when it's time's right, go up top for me. I go, you got it. And so we went out there and we had a hell of a match. It's probably one of my best matches, if not my best match in WCW. And I get done afterwards and I'm sitting there and I had no idea hardly any of this stuff went on, what's going on, anything. I'm unlacing my boots and Mondo's Michael, bless his heart. I know he's not having the best of health nowadays. And
Right.
that breaks my heart seeing someone like that. Such an athlete, such a stud in his day. But Mongo come up to me like a man, and I didn't know anything was going on. He's standing up over me. I knew he's a tough son of a bitch. I knew he played in the NFL 15 years, and but in the ring, man, he is just kind of everywhere, knocking people down, hurting people, clumsy. I don't mean as a dig because I have a lot of respect for the guy for what he's done, but and who he is. But I was like, whoo, uh, you know, he said, I just want to shake your hand. He said, I didn't know you could fly around like that, kid. I said, oh, well, thank you very much. He goes, man, Bobby, he goes, that was a hell of a match. He goes, man, he goes, if I'd have known, and I know what he meant by this. He goes, if I'd have known you can go like that, he goes, I'd have kept my name on the board and worked with you tonight. And I said, oh, okay. And I go, well, maybe we can work another night. He put his hand back out. He goes, yeah, maybe so, kid, maybe so. And I was like, okay. Well, he walked away, and there was 24 matches that night. I was number 23. There was only a couple Mexicans, the Armstrong, because they rode with me, and Chris. There wasn't very many people left in the building at that point. And come to find out, I guess my name was against Mongo's, and Mongo went up and wiped his name off, or was going to, and he goes, I can't wrestle this kid. He don't have enough experience. And that went on. This one when Benoit and Malenko were horsemen, and it went all through Chris because we knew each other, like I said, and I worked out with them even in Atlanta. I picked back up, just not every day, but whenever I could, I did. And so anyway, long story short on that, uh, Benoit said, "Put my name up there," and he immediately came and found me. Well, then in the process of that happening, I guess he didn't tell anyone, but Scott Armstrong, he come up to me, he goes, Bobby, he goes, Chris is I told Chris, you're not just someone here to do a job. You're a good work. He goes, he just looked at me and said, don't worry about it. I'm taken care of. Has he talked to you yet? And I said, no. Well, that's when Chris come and got me. So when I come over there, Scott was still there. And Scott was like, he just told Scott, he goes, I told you I got this. That was it. So afterwards, man, Steve was like putting me over, like, what a match. He take care of you, everything. Gosh, man, it was fucking great. It was easy. I loved it. And they was like, man, we knew he had something planned. We just didn't know what and what it was. He got pissed off. And I didn't find out for a couple weeks later back to the next TV. That is why I had that match with Chris, was because Mongo didn't want the match and Chris was hot about it. So yeah, I got some of the top three guys in the world right there, Eddie, Dean, and Chris, you know. Um,
Yeah.
and then, of course, I got to wrestle Chris again. One of my, I think it might have been one of my, if it wasn't one of it, the last match I had was in WCW with Chris. And he was getting ready to do trying to think, I think he was working Rick Steiner, I think. Could be, he'd work anyway. Some kind of crossface match, some specialty match for a pay per view. And I was going to work his TV the week before, and they said, yeah, Bobby, can't have that 50-50 match. Just make it a 70-30. Chris, you take more of the match. And we turn around. We wasn't even behind the fucking door. And Chris goes, 50-50, I'll see you in the ring. Got the ring, and he said, go. And he just went at me like, you know, like he does anyway. I already knew the finish. I already knew if he threw knees or chops, protect myself. You know, we got in the ring. We didn't cause shit. We just started going at each other. We had a good match again, and then it was time go Bobby go up top. You know, miss it, whatever. So it was easy. He's professional for me, and I hate the uh, when I talk about this, my mind is focused just strictly on the wrestling and that part of it only, because I have
Right.
to really separate anything personal from that, or I wouldn't want to be speaking about it. And I'm not trying to
Right.
make anyone a hero or look good or this that. This is just the facts before uh, something very nasty and terrible happened in his personal life, you know. But I'm not here to judge any man. I'm not here for that. But as far as in ring talent and stuff, man, you know, Eddie, I tell people too, Eddie, when I touch you, if I was touching you right now, Eddie is like just, let me put my hands there. Eddie's like, yes, you know, he's there, man. You just barely touch you, and you're like, and you just, Eddie just goes. You're like, you go to grab him, he's already going. That's how smooth he went. Wow. Like, so, and then now, Dean likes you to know he's there. So he's going to grab you a little bit. But he's not going to be snug. He's just there enough to say, "Hey, this is the direction we're going," because it's going to go Dean's way. Believe me, that's the way he is, and that's a good thing. Now, Chris would clamp on, was really snug, and I didn't mind that either because that's the way I like to work. Now, am I going to hurt you? No. Am I going to hit you in a safe place hard? Yes, I am. Do you want to hit me back in those same safe places hard? Knock, do it. I don't care. You want to do an armbar stiff and tight, power, that's fine too. I'm not here to try to hurt you or get hurt, but I don't mind if we're that stiff. And Chris was that stiff. And so when I'm training people, I say, I'll tell them you can learn to be, because I like being this light. I don't want anyone fucking grabbing my neck, you know. I want somebody
Right.
that can work, you know. But if you have to, you know, you're like, go in hard, then you can relax, then you can work. So yeah, all those guys, and also some of the guys I got to see in WCW, just be around world class athletes like that, you know, uh, and to be on TV and get paid for it. I mean, that that was my dream. You know, I got to live my
Yeah.
dream, so to say. You know, so
Yeah.
that was cool. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, all right, a little bit in a little bit, I'm going to throw some names at you, but I also want to talk to you about you ended up going to Japan for Michinoku Pro in
yep,
1997 for quite some time, I guess.
yep.
Yeah.
I ended up going there 5 different times. I think the first tour in '97 was 3 weeks. I think I went for
Okay.
21 days maybe. And yeah, I enjoyed going to Japan. That was again one of my earlier goals in wrestling. And I went to Michinoku, and those guys were so fun to work with, so easy to work with. I was one of the bigger guys, so he put me with Hakushi, excuse me, Jinsei, and I'd beat up young boys, boom, 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 boom. And first 2 or 3 matches, I'd beat them up, get a big victory. And after 3 or 4 days of winning, you know, the big, ugly, strong American guy beating up these Japanese boys, I'd move up to like semi-main against Jinsei or Hakushi. And, you know, we'd have a good competitive match, but then he would beat me with the power bomb. And so that would go on, or then the next day I'd go up and it'd be maybe a 6 man, either be a tag match or a 6 man, me and a couple guys against Sasuke and a Grand Hamada. So that'd be a tag team match, you know. And then again, right at the end, they got you, boom. Well, then after that, I'd go back down, and for the next 4 or 5 nights, they'd give me a couple young boys, and I'd just boom, boom. Now, if they told me, they said like some matches, first and second match, they said, Bobby, give them 2 moves, drop kick, backdrop, let them do that to you, and that's it. no more. I go, okay. I didn't hurt them, of course, because I respect, but then they say, okay, this match, even 50-50, young boy, good. They tell you, speaking, not mocking anyone, just saying that's the way they tell you. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. And he built it back up again. And then next thing you know, I'm back in the main event, and I got to wrestle Sasuke in his hometown for the title one time. That's exciting. And seeing all those talented people at Michinoku was unreal. Every one of them guys could work and go. They would just tear the house down. I just watch. I got, I do my matches, and then I just watch, and then I got to go back again. I did the summer tour. That was like 6 weeks. Uh, another tour I did. Of course, Michinoku is northeast Japan, northeast of Tokyo. But I think my third tour might have been a third, might have been fourth. One of them we went down south, so I flew in. I had a press conference, me and Sasuke and Willie Wilkinson Jr. So by the time I got there, I got to Tokyo. I did this little briefing. Then I had to fly to Osaka, I think it was. Anyway, got there, had to do a press meeting and do a match that night. Because they really take care of you over there when you go on a tour, the media stuff. Then we started catching up the next crew like a couple days later. So I had some stuff he had set me up for. And then we just got on a bus and boom, just kept going south, 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 doing all these different places I never had been before because it's southern Japan, and took a couple trains here and there. But by the end of the tour, hell, I was 23 hours away from Tokyo when the end of the tour came. We had worked ourselves so far down that way. And it's just like getting on an old lonely Greyhound bus here in Kentucky, I guess, and trying to go to Tampa or somewhere, just travel all night long just to get back home, kind of thing. But and then wait another couple of days before I flew home to Kentucky. But it was pretty cool, man, just to see that whole country and knew how much the fans there love and appreciate wrestling. They do, man. It's just I love being in Japan. We went one time. We in Awadi where we stayed at the hotel. I'm just such a big mark sometimes. It's just little things that you can get me on, but they give you these big boards. And they'll pay $10 for them for you to autograph them. Well,
The
here,
Shiki boards. Yeah, the Shiki
okay,
boards. Yeah.
thank you.
Yep. Yep.
Here, someone gives it to you. I just sign regular thing because maybe they're getting five or six other people's. In Smoky Mountain, they may get several autographs on one page, or they may
Right.
get one shirt. That's your shirt. No one else want to sign it. But I signed in the corner, Bobby Blaze. And so the guy looks at it like I broke his fucking heart, man. He gives me a look, and so I'm like, what the fuck? And they're like, no, this is for you. You're supposed to use the whole board. And I said, well, you want me to pay for another one? No, no, I got it. He got another board, and I put on there a big letter, Bobby Blaze, boom. So we had stayed at a hotel, say on this side, and we had traveled and traveled and come back a couple of days later and I'd seen them boards in the convenience stores like the 7-Elevens, what have you over there, uh, up on all the people. Every American wrestler had been there or foreign wrestler, and I was like, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So we had to stay in a hotel on the other side. So I don't know how many blocks it was back to that hotel. But the next day, Willie, myself, we're walking around and we go to this convenience store. Guys, this is just me being a country boy and being a big mark in Tokyo, or Awadi, rather. Apologize for. I look up and there's my Shiki board, as you're saying, has Bobby Blaze in big letters. And I was like, holy shit, how'd they get that? Did they copy that and get that to all these stores? And I started marking out. And I was kind of looking around. I go, Willie, come here, man. I go, my name's up here with all these. How did they get my name up here? And he said, Bobby, and he's an old country boy too from North Carolina, but he had lived over there for 5 years. He goes,
Right.
Bobby, you're like, bless your hearts. He said, this is the same fucking store we was in yesterday. We're just staying at a different hotel a couple blocks down the road. This is the same area we come and eat in every day. And I go, oh, okay. So, and we come in a different, like the back entrance. And so we
Yep.
took it out front. And he goes, there's a hotel we normally stay in. It was booked this weekend or something. I'm like, oh, okay. So it's just around the corner. You know, it was a big ass store, but around the corner we had to walk to the front where the convenience part was. So that stuff like that happened to me all the time, man. Like I signed those for him, and just silly things would happen to me all the time like that. But if it gave him something to laugh about, I gave him something to laugh about, you know. But yeah,
Right, right,
I learned quick to sign big autographs. You know, that's your board. You're going to, that it's their pleasure that you're signing it for them to them, you know. And I
right,
heard it
right.
cost like $10 a piece. That's why I was like, you know, I just signed my name real small. You go, no, I got it. So probably that probably got burned that day, I'd say, because he wanted that big one that he could display in his store, you know, which is an honor, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
No,
like.
that's awesome. That's awesome. I just want to throw some names at you and
Yep.
tell me what it was like working with them. Actually, before that, you ended up beating Dirty White Boy for the Beat the Champ television title. What was it like winning that title? You held that. Hold on, I got it in front of me. I got it in front of me. You held that belt a total of, if I remember, three times. Three
Okay.
times, and I believe
Okay.
that you your first time winning it was against
Three
Dirty
times.
White Boy Tony
Three
Anthony.
times. Yeah, because first time uh, we were going to do an angle, and Cornette come to me and he said, I've got something planned for you. Just hang in there. And I had done a couple of TVs for him after my tryout match. And then that summer, he was like, Bobby, I really think I got something for you. You going to be around? I said, yeah. I said, this is where I wanted to work at. You know, I really have. And Canada that year too, they weren't doing as much. I did find that out, so I wasn't going to be able to go for like 18, 16 weeks or whatever. They were just doing a week here and there that year. So I was like, yeah, I plan on being here, Jimmy. He goes, okay. So that was about was discussed, and he goes, well, I think I've got something for you. So he he brought me in and said, I want you to sit on a production meetings. I said, okay. So I thought, oh, that's a big step, you know, getting to sit on our production meetings. And then it got to that segment, and I was just sitting there going, "Oh shit, man! He got me in an angle with Dirty White Boy. Wow, something's planned." Well, that night I went out there for the match, and he had told me it might be coming. Just asked me my opinion of it, and I had worked on some house shows, and I kept me a blade. I don't know what's said out there, what's not. And I was like, I know this is going to come. You know, we'll see what happens. First 2 or 3 nights, Jimmy was like, "Oh no, this is just a house show. Don't worry about it. Go out there and have a good match. Anthony will beat you. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it." Okay, you don't want me to? No, you don't have no juice, nothing like that. Don't worry about it. Just do what you're supposed to. I'm like, okay. He goes, now don't quit. Whatever you do, just keep fighting him, no matter what he does. So that's when he come up with the idea of I could be the quote no quit kid or not give up, keep fighting. Well, so when it come time for TV, that's when Jimmy said, you know, hey, we've talked about this. You have a problem doing this? I said, no, sir, I don't. And so when Tony won, you know, he had me beat, but popped up. And when he did, I was already, you know, gigged open and rolled back one of 1, 2, 3, and he had a chain in a match, and he teed me on a chain, you know, and that just set up a series of matches and kind of got me my first break at the beginning. You know, White Boy, him and I think Horner. I don't know if this is true or not. I heard Horner was jealous of Chris, and that White Boy was jealous of me, and you know Jimmy's going to push us and knock them, and it's that sort of that little bit of heat there. But we're just fresh young baby faces on Chris with a heel, but new talent to the company, to a newer company too, you know. And
Yeah,
I respect Anthony, you know, and he worked a lot of years in the business stuff. But after a couple of nights of him working with me, he really was like, "Oh man, this is fun, kid. This is a night off." And then I was rooming with Robert Gibson one night in Knoxville, and he said, "Hey, he goes, man, Tony's taking advantage of you." And I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, he's just beating you up too much. And I go, "Well, that's my job is just fight him, fight him, fight him. And then I'll come back, and then you know the gimmick's over." And he goes, "No," he goes, he needs to give you more in a match. He goes to make it more competitive. I think it'd be even better." Well, I'm sitting there thinking, and I knew Robert a long time too. Just so you know, I already knew Robert longer than I did Ricky. I'm like, oh, okay. And they never roomed together. Just thought people don't understand that, but you're around someone so much sometimes you just, you know. So they to they may have roomed at one point together, but I know when I see them now, they still don't room together. But anyway, he said, okay. So the next day, I wrestled a match, and White Boy started giving me a couple more spots. He gave me this, said, kick out, do this, kick out, come back, and just kept. I'm like, okay. So I just followed it, and then we went to the finish, and boom, boom. Well, that night, Robert Gibson said, wasn't that much better? I go, yeah, it was. And he goes, yeah, it's always nice to know the right people, kid. And I go, so what happened? He goes, I just told, he goes, I know these guys were off. I known them for a long time. He goes, I just told Anthony needs to give you something. And I said it in front of Cornette, and Cornette sided with me and said, yeah, give Bobby a bit more to make it even more competitive, but not a lot. So he gave me it. So that was really cool. So it didn't. Then when White Boy came to me, he didn't take the wrong way. Like, yeah, you got someone in the office kissing her ass, because I didn't do it. They just, but he respected that someone else noticed that. And so he gave me a little bit more, and I took a little bit more, and it was like easy to work with. And so after that, not that we had a problem because he was beating me up anyway, but it was really smooth over. Like, yeah, okay, kid, I got you. We'll have fun. We had more fun. And no matter what he did to me, I'd take the 2 count and kick out, or I'd grab the rope, or whatever it was. And that started that program, just full of grit and not going to quit. Then they got, we had junior heavyweight title of Chris Candido, and was building that up. We were just coming up each side, like Cornette talks about doing. Till finally, time off here, time off there, do this, do that. And I just was really, really glad to be there. I love the Smoky Mountain territory. I speak like a lot of the people speak down in Knoxville and around this area. So, body wise, I wasn't overly huge, but I was bigger than an average guy, and I had a different, a little bit different look than someone on the street. So, like, okay,
Right.
this guy's passable, athletic, a professional wrestler as he should be in this area, and it got over good. I remember being in Canada. They said they was going to announce me from Nashville, Tennessee, and I said, yeah, Nashville, I like that. Country music capital, different. And the Angel, the original Cuban assassin, he said, Bobby, you speak more like people in Tennessee over in the Knoxville side, not Nashville. And I said, yeah, I know. And so finally it started getting to be where from Knoxville, my speech and stuff, and end up. What's funny is when I first took off to Florida to go train, and then I came home one time. I said that after that WWE deal from Canada, WWF or whatever, going back after that Christmas, I'd have to go through Knoxville going to 75 South, and they'd have posters up for wrestling for billboards, And at one point, I'd gotten that TV right when I was breaking into wrestling. Excuse me. We had Continental TV from the Knoxville area. Ron Fuller's,
Yep.
Continental. So I got some of that TV, the tail end of it, as an adult, a young adult, And I just always was drawn to Knoxville, and lo and behold, that's where I ended up getting most of my career started and credit to that. And found out Malenko had lived there at one point, had trained Buddy Landell. Dean was telling me all kinds of stories about that area. He used to train, and it to me, it's just a beautiful area of the country too. And we had a good program there. Sure, if we could have got like maybe 2 more markets somewhere in the Cincinnati, Lexington area, or if we got out toward like Chattanooga or Birmingham, if we had just 2 more little areas, that thing could have really exploded bigger than what it was. But it was an honor to work there, and a privilege. And I'm glad what Jimmy did for my career. And a lot of good fans of Smoky Mountain Wrestling too.
Yeah.
A lot of good people. So,
The crowds were always on fire, it
yeah,
seemed.
y'all, they
So
love their wrestling, man. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
give me some names.
Um, what's that?
You said give me some names. You said.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course, you got to meet. You defeated Jerry Lawler for the SMW title, the Smoky
Uh,
Mountain Heavyweight Championship.
uh,
So,
some,
of course, Jerry is the king of wrestling. So
yeah,
he's one of the best to ever do it.
and I'm the King Slayer. I don't have my King Slayer hoodie or sweatshirt on today, but yeah, I've got some King Slayer gear. Someone had ordered for me, some merch. Should have it on plugging it right now. But anyway, yeah, no, Lawler, like I said, go back time, 9, 10 years old, and my brother comes out and found it on TV, and that's the old Memphis Wrestling. And so I had watched Lawler since I was around 10. Got to see him for the first time when I was in person when I was around 15. Uh, I got a couple of stories about go see the promoter and so, some of the students I work with at the Art of Grappling School where I do some training at. I'll have me a drink of beer, start my evening, and I'll let that big burp go. And I'll say, hell, I don't know, see the promoter. Because that happened to me more than once. And one of them was Don Morocco, was in Huntington, and he took a big gulp of beer. And how do I get in this business? How do I get it? And he goes, I don't know, see the promoter. So go fast forward I was about 21 years old. I've been trying to get into wrestling for about a year. I was at Rupp Arena in Lexington, Kentucky. The main event is Jerry the King Lawler, and I'm standing trying to get as close to the backstage area as I can. And I'm standing there, and sophomore in college, I guess. And I look over, and Lawler's like 2 feet away from me. And I'm like, oh shit. So I start sizing myself up. I've been lifting weights. I'm like, I'm almost as tall as him. Maybe I'm taller. And I'm just sitting there, and he's just sitting like this watching the match. Uh, but he's sincerely just watching it. I'm trying to look at him, this and that, and I go, Jerry Lawler, man, you're the king. I start putting on it. I go, man, I don't remember if we shook hands or not, to be honest with you. But I go, you're the greatest thing, I go, let me ask you this. I go, how do I get into professional wrestling, Lawler? How do I get in? And he turned back and looked at me and goes, see the promoter, and walked away. Sounds like two people had told me that. And I'm still looking for the promoter, by the way. I would try to find out how to get the fuck out of this business. But no, so I had a couple people tell me, see the promoter, kid. But yeah, Lawler. So when Cornette brought that up, he called me on a Friday afternoon. I'd been out of town and was just getting ready to leave town, but for some reason I stopped by my house, and he called during that time, and I had like a 1 hour window there. I was just stopped by my house at. He called, we talked. He said, now don't say anything to anyone. I was actually heading to Tennessee. I wasn't working for Smokey, though. It was this independent deal. I'd been in West Virginia, and I was just coming through this area. And he said, I'll call you. He said, I'll see Jerry this weekend, and I'll call you Monday evening if everything's cool. I said, okay. Well, Monday evening, about 9 o'clock, Jimmy called me, and he said, Bobby, I got this idea. He ran it by me. He said, don't tell anyone. I said, no, sir, I wouldn't. And I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my brother. I didn't tell my wife. I didn't tell my mom. Went on a couple of shows there that weekend. I didn't say a word. That following weekend, I didn't say a word. I just listened, watched the program, kept going, ooh, this is going to be good. This is leading to something. And so looking back, I think, Jimmy, Sandy, Mark Curtis all knew, obviously. Of course, Lawler had to know, then Buddy, and White Boy, and probably Bullard Armstrong and me. That's 8 people probably knew. That may be pushing it, because I don't know when it was told to Buddy and White Boy. I just know my part was told early on, and that I agreed to do it, and I said absolutely. And I make jokes sometimes because I'm a real respectful person of this business, and they say, well, you beat so and so. Yeah, I did. I beat Jerry the King Law. Well, I can do my old Terry Funk and say, you know what? Someone penciled that in. The booker penciled that in, don't you? The office, the worst hold in wrestling, Rick? The office hold. The pencil hold, the pencil hold will get you there, so you got to watch out for the pencil hold. You may be the best wrestler is, but watch out for the pencil hold. But no, the pencil was on my side, and worked it out and worked the program out. And I was much more the better for it, to go out there, and had not been there for, I think, 3 months. I'd done some local stuff in my area as me, and then a couple of farther shots under the hood as Kendo, just to fill in, but and keep my foot in the door, and, this and that. But when I went back to Bobby Blaze again, been off TV like 3 months, one first or second match, something like that, about 5 minutes against Brian Keys, Brian Logan. He kind enough to put me over early. Then I was back there getting undressed when Bullet Bob come back and found me and said, get out there. And I wrestled, beat Lawler, and next thing you know, I'm defending against Landau and beat him too. And the rest, it's a legendary night, the Sunday Bloody Sunday, man, in Knoxville, Tennessee. made
Right.
my career. I'm so appreciative of that. Sometimes I don't realize what a big accomplishment that was or is, and I have to be reminded of that. But that's me. That's just me being humble. Um, and cause I know the truth, I'm proud of that fact. I take pride in it. It gives us
Well,
something to talk about.
yeah. Uh, let's see. Obviously, we didn't get much of a chance to talk about this gentleman, but Tim Horner,
Yeah,
you got to
Tim.
work with him. Yeah.
Yeah, I like Tim. I always thought Tim was a good worker. I never
Yeah.
had a problem with Tim. Uh, I told Tim when I got there was a show, there was a match. I think it was Madison Square Garden or Boston Garden, and it could have been both, to be honest with you. It was this was I was just breaking in. It was a match between Tim Horner and Barry Horowitz, and they got to go about 15 minutes, and they were real. They could just go, they worked, and wasn't a squash match or anything like that. And I'd seen Tim before, Brad Armstrong, on Atlanta TV, and so it's like, yeah, I, and then Tim actually before he put that junior heavyweight title on me, he was walking by the day he was going to do it, and he was looking at the belt. Belt belonged to Scott Armstrong, and he goes, "Man, that's a good looking belt." And I said, "Yeah, it is." And of course, I hadn't won it yet. I just was holding it to prep stuff and promos. And he said, "Yeah." He goes, "I told you we liked you here." That was the only time he ever gave an indication that, like when he said "we," like he was part of the office or whatever, because he never come to me with, you do this, you do that. I'd heard things and I thought, well, he's one of the boys too. And if he's an owner or investor, he shows it different than anyone else. So I never took any of that backstage political bullshit. I just, I never had it because I was professional. As I told him when I got there, I'd been up in Canada twice now. I'd been to Australia, this and that. Um, I just said, I'm a grown ass man. You don't have to babysit me. There's some
Right.
people, you hire someone, they're out doing this and doing that and missing shots and whatever it is. And I just, at that point in my life, I'm like, you know what? You, you don't have to worry about me. When you tell me to be here at 6, my ass will be here at 5. Because I'm warming
Right.
up. I'm going to run these stairs. I'm going to do push ups and do squats. And if there's a weight room in the area, I'm going to be doing that. Uh, at the time, very seldom I might have a beer or two, and that's that. Uh, now I might have a beer or three. I'm just saying. But back then, I didn't have to be worried about will he make this booking one time? Will he sing? Uh, Blue Moon over Kentucky or something like Buddy did or whatever. Blue, is that what Buddy sang? Blue Moon when he was supposed to tap out. I think he said Blue Moon. Uh,
Uh, that's a good question.
Yeah, I think that's what he sung. But yeah, they didn't have to babysit me, and that was my only really conversation with Tim. And then when Smoky Mountain shut down, Tim had a couple of shows, and he called me up and used me. Just like going to put that former Smoky Mountain heavyweight title out there. Is that okay? Yeah, that's fine. And he'd have me someone to work with, and yeah, I had no problem with Tim. Like I said, Tim was a hell of a good little worker, man. It's just one of them things.
Yeah.
Sometimes people catch a bigger break than other people, but I always thought he was very talented. And I'm not going to, my promos don't, hold a candle to someone like Ric Flair or something like that, or Buddy Landell's even maybe. But I had Jimmy helping me with my promos, and that when someone like that's helping you, how can you not learn? So
Right. Right.
I'm not going to bust everyone else's nuts about, oh, they got terrible promos or whatever. I just had to learn to get good at promos because Jimmy put me in that position and said, go, do it again. And ever since they gave me the junior title, he said, go, do it again, more, this and that. And that's what he wanted me to do was be that baby face. He said, look out there every week in a TV land and imagine you're that 10-year-old boy that was a fan, Bobby. He said, wrestle for that kid and don't quit for him. I'm like, yeah, you're right, man. I'm
Yeah.
that kid that's at every show ringside at TV. Sorry about that. I'm
Nope.
that
You're good.
one. I look out there and I'm like, yeah, they're beating me up. Come on, and I'm getting that sympathy, and I'm gonna start my comeback. So that's what I did. I just imagined like, man, this guy paid money to see me. I'm gonna give him their money's worth, then some, and make a good TV product or make a good TV show, and have a
Yeah.
good match. So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
What about primetime? Brian Lee.
primetime Brian Lee. I love me some primetime Brian Lee. That's who I had my tryout match against. When I was talking about earlier, I came up from Florida getting ready to head to Canada. I stopped at a show and saw Jimmy. Well, that's where I met Ricky. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I had met Brian in Tampa really briefly, and on that show when I come through here, Robert Gibson was there. I said Ricky, I'm sorry. Robert was here, Scott Armstrong, and Brian Lee. So I knew all three of them, and we're at this small show about an hour from my house up in Paintsville, Kentucky, about an hour from here, and I have family there and stuff. But I went up there to meet Jimmy in person, gave him all my stuff again because I've been talking to him from Florida. He only had, see, us with 90. I got how many TVs he had at that time, but he wasn't full time one. He had like 10 matches a month, maybe. He wasn't up going 12 and 14 and 16 yet. But anyway, I talked to Brian. They was like, "When you coming in? When you coming in?" I was like, "Man, I'm going to Canada. I hope to get in as soon as I get back." And I'm just anyway. Time goes on. I go to Australia, go to Canada, go to Australia. I go in March the 10th. The reason I remember that's my grandmother, great grandmother, and great grandfather's birthday at that point, at some point in your young life, when those people are still with you. So I was like, Cornette asked me to go to Beckley, West Virginia on March 10th for a tryout. I go up there. I'm sitting there. I talk to everyone, Jimmy Golden, Tom Pritchard, Mark Curtis mostly. He's like a big fan, put me over, talking about Malenko's. We go out, we jog a little bit together. We do some stretches. I'm just like, this is great. Well, here comes Jimmy, and we, talk, and he comes in. I knew I liked him because he's going to make everyone laugh anyway. As soon as he walked in the room in front of everyone, he goes, Bobby Blaze, Ashland, Kentucky's second most notable person. And he goes, the first being most famous person. He goes, the first being Charles Manson. And of course, the guy cracked up because Manson apparently lived here for about a year when he was about 12 or 13 years old. And so, like, he's put me up there with Charles Manson. I mean, hey. But anyway, so he goes, you got a minute? Let's go talk. So we went there and talked. And then a bathroom door swings open. There's Brian Lee. And he goes, hey, how you doing? How you doing, brother? So Jimmy goes, hey, Bobby, this is Brian. He's our current TV champion. He's been our first champion. He's going to have your tryout match. He goes, you don't have any problem putting him over, do you? Now, I was in really good shape. I'd been over in Australia. I was tanner than what I had been forever. So I looked pretty decent, but I looked at Brian. I said, Jimmy, I said, come on, brother. I said, he's 6'8", 300 pounds. I said, bro, what's your finish? Just tell me. And he said, I do this thing called a final countdown. It's real easy. I'll just put you on my shoulder, spin you, and take you down. You won't feel it. I said, sounds good to me. What about the rest of it? He goes, you're the heel. You call it. It's your match. I said, okay. And we went out there in first match, and I called stuff for Brian, and Brian just started looking at Brian Lee, started looking at Mark Curtis going, I dare Cornette to book this kid. I dare. And I'm thinking, am I fucking up or am I doing okay? And Mark was watching every little thing. So, oh, it's a deep arm drag. And he's kind of doing commentary and this and that. And I'm just calling stuff for Brian and getting over. And finally, it's time to go home. And, he picks me up and does the thing and drops me, boom, spins me out, sits me down flat and flat, took care of me like he said he was. By the time I got in the back, Cornette come to me and said, man, Brian said he'd give you a job. I said, well, that's nice of him. He goes, you know him or something? I go, we just met a couple of times, once in Florida, once here, I said, he goes, well, he over there just putting you over about how good of a worker you are. And he goes, if I've got something, Bobby, I'll let you know. He gave me a paycheck. Okay, so, and when I was on the road with Brian, I see Brian out. Hey, Brian, everything was good. Spoke to each other, respect each other. And then one of the last time I saw him was when he had signed with WWF. And I was walking through a mall like in Johnson City, Tennessee, just kind of, mind my own business kind of thing. I don't even know what the hell I was doing, shopping for something or other. But anyway, out of nowhere, boom, I get hit by a working punch. I turn around, I spin around like I'm ready to fight, but there's Brian Lee. He goes, I got you, brother. I got you. You would have been dead. And he just starts just fucking with me. But he hadn't been there for several weeks because he'd been up in New York. And he goes, man, I'm going to be on Domino's pizza boxes. Man, what do you think about that? I go, bro, you're going to the show. And we stood in the mall acting like two big marks. We were in a store. It's probably a sporting goods or something. because he come
Yeah.
out of nowhere and glommed me, but he didn't hit me. He just popped his arm, whatever. But I was so happy for him. I gave him a hug, shook his hand. He worked the show that night, and then I didn't see him after that, other than just doing little things, here or there, TV or what he was doing, ECW, whatever. But
Right.
yeah, for a big guy, man, big, strong, talented guy. Smoky Mountain, he was developing there. He gave him a push really quick and early on, but because
Right.
from Florida, big and strong. I mean, he worked Nashville, obviously. I'm just saying when I met him, big, strong guy, good look about him. I guess he got some other things along the way, and shit happens to all of us. And hopefully he's doing really good nowadays. I hear he is, and I hope he is.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't hear much about him these days, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
either.
What about beautiful Bobby?
Man, I love Beautiful Bobby. Actually, the shirt I had on yesterday was my Beautiful Bobby T-shirt I bought uh, right after he passed away, and I think we're coming up on the 3rd year anniversary of his death in the next
Yeah.
couple of days, if I'm not mistaken. Um, I don't recall the exact date, but I know it's sometime late July, early August. I do know that. You might go look it up there. Anyway, I was wearing his shirt. I love beautiful Bobby Eaton. Bobby Eaton was probably the first professional wrestler I got to meet and know outside the wrestling world, all because of his kindness and his gentleness and professionalism. I'd go to the shows in Huntington at the Huntington Fieldhouse too. I started to say, but over to the Huntington Coliseum there, Civic Center, and every time I'd get there, I'd run down to, like I said, where the entrance was, trying to talk to whoever I could. And Bobby Eaton every time would come over and talk to me. He said, "Hey boy, how you doing? How you doing now? How's that training going?" And he just talked to me, man. He goes, "I'm gonna talk corny for you. Hold on." He'd get Jimmy and say, "Jimmy, come here. Here's that boy Bobby I was saying about." And that's just the way Bobby was. Just super nice, good guy. Always talked about something. And then when I got to Smoky Mountain Wrestling, like I said, when I first went in for my tryout match, it was like I said, Jimmy Golden was there, Mark Curtis, and Tom Pritchard. Bob Eaton was the other one in the locker room, and man, we just started talking. Sure enough, he opened up that legendary bag he had. He goes, "Hey boy, you want some gum? Want some gum? Want some certs?" So he started handing out shit. Want some pliers? I'm like, no. Need a needle? No. I'll take a piece of candy. If that's gonna make you happy, you ain't got to go through the whole list. Just give me a piece of candy. I'm good. But Bobby. But then, and I got to work with Bobby in Smoky Mountain. Jimmy put me with him for a singles, and he said, "Well, boy, what do you want to do?" I said, "You're Bobby Eaton." I said, "You tell me." He goes, "No, just get out there." And I saw one of the Japanese arm drag, and he was like, well, he wasn't uncertain about it, but I was like, "You're just going to take like a hip toss bump." And he goes, "Oh, okay, no worries." And he goes, "Anything else?" I said, "No, I don't, and I just listened, let it, because I knew he's so good, man. It was just,
Yeah.
he's working. And then got the WCW, and we stayed at the same place down in. We go to shoot TV in Orlando. Was at Universal Studios. Him and Barbarian, and myself and uh, the Maestro. We all stayed in these little apartments off the Disney complex there, and had a lake and fishing and basketball and all this. Armstrong stayed down a couple. So all these people, you go there for 10 days. So I kind
Right.
of, in the evening, we, believe it or not, Barbarian's a pretty good basketball player. We'd go out back of our, get done for a day, and we'd have a few beers, and me and Bobby, and me and Barb and Stroh and a couple other would play some basketball too. Then we go to dinner. Well, after I was there about, I don't know, we'll say close to a year, and I got to go to Vancouver for EA Sports. It's in the game, the
Yep.
Mayhem Wrestling video that had Bill Goldberg on the front of the case. And so I got there, and it was Flash LaRue, Buddy Lee Parker, it was Bobby Eaton, and myself. So every day, 25 days or so, we got picked up in a limo every day at 8:30. We had to be on the set by 9. We had an hour break for lunch from 12 to 1. Then a limo would pick us up at 5, be back at the condo at 5:30. Living large, man. But the downtime, I'm with Bobby Eaton, and I'm just talking and talking, and I'm picking his brain, and just because he's just such a good guy. You cannot if I always say this on these podcasts, they ask about Bobby Eaton. If anyone ever said something to me that was mean or hateful and nasty about Bobby Eaton, I would say that's a damn lie, and I'd probably stick my size 13 foot up their ass, because you just won't hear people saying anything bad or nasty or hateful about Bobby Eaton. He was just such a lovable, good guy, uh, good heart, and could wrestle, humble too. I asked him when in Canada. I said, "Man, I remember at one point, he's one of the best high flyers in the U.S. or maybe the world." And I'd see his name in those dirt sheets, and like I said, Bobby Eaton. And well, I asked him, I said, "What's it like to be as good as you?" He goes, "I don't even know what you're talking about." He just said, "I'm just a regular worker, man." I go, "Dude, you used to come off the top rope before anyone else. That's high flying." He goes, "There's a lot of guys who do it now." It's just so humble. And I was like, "How do you fucking?" I get it now that I'm older, because I do the same shit. I sit there and go, "Yeah."
Yeah.
"How do you do it in Northern Lights?" I said, "I practiced a lot and I had flexibility and just did it. Man, and they want to know more. I'm like, "I'm telling you more. I did it. That's all you can say." Man, yeah, Bobby Eaton. I love Bobby Eaton. One to me,
Uh,
one of the best workers of all time.
Absolutely. I found the information. It's going to be August 4th, 2021. So that's coming up
Yeah,
in what
yeah.
is that going to be
That'll
Friday,
be
I believe, or Saturday? Sunday.
at
Sunday,
Sunday. At
excuse me.
Sunday,
Yeah,
yes, Sunday,
Sunday. Yeah.
Sunday. Been
Okay,
two or
so
3 years. Yeah.
let's see. We got the Heavenly Bodies, Stan Lane and Tom Pritchard at the time.
Oh yeah, yeah. Those guys, man. Tom Pritchard, one of the best.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Stan was only there. Uh, let's see, maybe my first. He was finishing up. I think maybe the first 3 months I was there. He wasn't there very long.
Hmm.
He would come with Tommy. Tommy, what's his name? Uh, Referee.
Pritchard.
Sorry,
Tommy Young? No, no.
Tommy Young. Yes, sir. Tommy
No.
Young,
Okay. Yep.
coming up from Charlotte and stuff. And I guess he went through about 3 pair of brake pads in about 3 months and said, I'm done with this, because you're up in the mountains, the Smoky Mountain curves. It's where I don't know
Right.
what I don't know how long full deal was, but I think I was only there maybe he might have been there 3 months. If that summer, I think of '93, he might have left somewhere around the fall of that year, if I'm not mistaken, when they bring a Jimmy in. But yeah, uh, Stan, just one of them guys, great body and great workers. But of all of them, he was the least I was around, because uh, one, I wasn't in the same locker room, and two, I think he was only there that summer, so I might have done like maybe 2 TVs with him and then a couple of house shows. Um, but Tom, I got to know Tom pretty good, because, like I said, my first loop, I got to work with him, and every time I'd see him, I was really respectful to him. And anytime he spoke, I would listen to what he had to say, because it's usually something important. So yeah, and those heavenly bodies, man, they got over. That was one of them things. Is I worked with them in a 6 man a couple of times. Me and Ricky and Robert against uh, shit, uh, Tom and Jimmy, with Killer Kyle in their corner, and
Right.
then got to do a couple of TVs with that. That was cool. And I knew Jimmy Del Rey from down in Tampa. He used to wrestle on Tuesday nights at the Sportatorium, and I'd go over through those shows. And plus, when I first got there, I would go to the Eddie Graham Sports Complex in Orlando. That was a Sunday show, so I'd go to every Sunday show, and I'd see the crew from Florida. So I knew Jimmy Del Rey from there, Kevin Sullivan. I got to know people through the business just by being a fan and a mark or whatever, but also becoming one of the boys. I was always respectful. I wasn't always trying to be a smart ass or get to know this, get to know that. I was there because I wanted to be there. I wanted to learn. But anyway, then the Heavenly Bodies, we come to Ashland, my hometown. I used to run it for Smokey. We didn't have TV here. We had about a 30-mile radius of here, and then we had people that did have it on satellite or read magazines, etc. Back in the day, or knew me from here. The Heavenly Bodies. Well, first of all, Ricky and Robert came in. I brought them in a couple times, and then finally, me and Ricky and Robert fought the Gangsters right here in my hometown, and that was cool. But then the next time they came through, it was me. My nose itches. Sorry, me and the Heavenly Bodies. Tom and Jimmy. Me, Tom, and Jimmy we wrestled the gangsters right here in my hometown. We finished them off the rocket launcher. They launched me across the ring, and D'Lo took the gimmick. Of course, he took the L. But as professional of D'Lo, and I've since seen him. He actually had an appearance not too far from here a couple of years ago, and I drove down and saw him and said hey to him and this and that. But yeah, so yeah, Heavenly Bodies and Cornette there with me too. What do you know? I mean, come on, man. Cornette's out there being that mouthpiece. You're just going to you're not going to get anything if you say anything back to him. Retaliation, it's a battle of the wits. I'm a handicap when he's talking. The saying you're not going to get anything over on that guy. So
Right. Right.
anyway, I like those guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about your book a little bit. You put out a book, was it Pin Me, Pay Me, right? And
Yes.
not so long ago, and it's a pretty hot book from what I understand.
Thank you. Yeah. It's called Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boots Will Travel. I wrote it all myself, some pictures in there of different places. It just starts off about me talking about what we just discussed, being a young boy, being an athlete. I was always athletic. I overcame some childhood illnesses, and athletics seemed to be my escape from the realism of other things, personal and physical in my life. And I loved basketball and football and things like that. But I just knew I always wanted to be in professional wrestling. And so it starts off with that. Then it goes through, me trying out and different places and pretty much tells the entire story. I put the whole Lawler run in there from when I first got that phone call. What you and I discussed very briefly is in detail in there. Every country I went to, I discussed about South Africa, a couple of things I mentioned, a riot, just flights, meeting people around the world, up doing a EA Sports video, getting to work with those people up there. And one day, Leslie Nielsen come to breakfast. The lady told us there was just up in Vancouver. The lady over EA said at that point there was 27 movies or TV shows being filmed at that time in the Vancouver area. And the first night we got there, Sarah Jessica Parker was there doing a production meeting. We're all like, woo, way to start off the week. But that was all private, of course, because we had our own production meetings. But one day, Leslie Nielsen come to breakfast, and he was cracking us up. I mean, it just to meet that guy, and he just got right in character. He fell into one of the boys category of me and Bobby and Lash and Buddy, and then another day we're eating breakfast. Here comes Roddy Piper. He was up there shooting. I think the show was Viper about a car, and he was up there shooting a video for Viper. And anyway, he come by the table, and Bobby knew him, and of course I had wrestled him, and had not seen him in WCW yet. So anyway, we speak, and he tells all of us, "Hey guys, good to see you." We tell him what we're doing there, and this, and he goes, "Well, I've got to go." He turned to this guy, and he said, "Oh, about an hour." And he goes, "Yeah, well, I'm going to be about an hour from here." We were like right downtown, maybe 15, 20 minutes from the hotel. And he goes, "Oh, yeah, I'll be back later this evening. Y'all want to have a drink?" And we said, "Yeah." We came down to the bar and restaurant every evening. Once we got done at 5:30, uh, we had come back at 7:30 or 8. We everyone go home, call your family, whatever. So we get back that evening. We're there, and we go to the bar, and bartender said, "Hey guys, just want to let you know, Mr. Piper left a drink for everyone. He won't be back in time before the kitchen's closed." He said, "So the first round's on Roddy." Like, oh, that's pretty cool. He didn't forget us, but he took the time to call in to the bar and say, "Hey, if them wrestlers come in," or he might have said Bobby, meaning Bobby Eaton or whoever he whatever it was. First, that's pretty cool. He didn't forget, say he didn't
Right.
forget where he came from, and whatever he was doing filming wise, apparently it went way over. But that was cool. So you get to see all these different people. You meet people. Um, and I never was a big autograph hound. I just shit. I'll sign my autograph to you if you want to give me one. I'll take it. I'll more likely get it done for someone else. And I don't even like doing that. Someone asked me to do it. I'm like, I'm not that guy. Sorry. If I'm not getting it for me or my own kids, I'm probably not getting them for you. The only autograph I got in WCW, and I still mark doing it, but Goldberg when he was on the TV guides, who's
Yeah.
next, and I bought 4 of them, and I got two for my sons and my best friend, his sons. And I said, could you sign these? And I put them away and I gave them to my boys. They're stored somewhere. And that's only, I just hardly ever got autographs, especially as I got older, it's just not one of my passions.
Right.
But I admire the people that do and that do collect things and collect autographs. And I respect that. It's just, I've had stuff, I've had people's autographs. Hell, I had a baseball from 1966 World Series that was signed by Frank Robinson. Now, you tell me that ain't worth something,
That's got to be, yeah.
But I got that in 1966 when I was 3 years old. And like I said, we moved from Baltimore in 69 to here. That got lost somewhere or sold somewhere along the trip of growing up. But that's one of my possessions. My brother and I will rib each other. He said, man, what about baseball? What if you still had that, man? But my grandma, like I mentioned, she was a nurse at Johns Hopkins. And that's why I got that. They were doing ankle surgery, I think, that year. And I was 3. I don't remember this is me as an adult, young man saying, I wish I had that baseball still. I wasn't meant to be a collector, I don't guess, or I'd still have that one or some money from it or something. So, yeah.
Right.
Go ahead,
so,
man.
Well, I want to thank you for joining me today.
Yes.
So, and I'd love to have you back sometime. Maybe we can tell some more stories.
Be glad to. Let me throw this out there on my book real quickly, okay? My social media, I am not on Facebook. So if you think you're talking to Bobby Blaze, it's not me. I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Bobby Blaze 744. That's my football and basketball number. So it's Bobby Blaze 744. If you look up Pin Me, Pay Me, just Google it. It'll be the first thing that comes up. My book's available on Amazon. Just go to Amazon. You can go under Bobby Blaze Smedley or just go in Pin Me, Pay Me, have Boots Will Travel, or type in I Kicked Out on Two, the educational wrestler, and it has the direct link to my books, okay? You can either download them on a Kindle or any cell phone or laptop or whatever. The Kindle app is free, unless you have a Kindle, which I do. I'm an avid reader. I got 2 books over here right now. I'm reading actually 2 completely different books, but I love reading. A gift my mother got from her, bless her heart. But anyway, I'd be honored if someone got my book. If you're listening to the program, you've already read my book, I'd be really thankful for any reviews I get. All I ask for on reviews is a fair and honest review. Pin Me, Pay Me has over 100, I think it's 179 reviews, and it averages out to be like a 4.5, 0.46 read. So, I mean, that's pretty daggum good. I'll take it. So, yeah, get out there and get on Amazon, order a book, and tell them, hey, and if you heard me on here, hey, let me know on my Instagram or Twitter. Just say, hey, I heard you with Rick, because it's been my pleasure. I love doing these things. I got so excited, I wanted to do it yesterday. I was up ready to go to the gym, and I said, oh, wait a minute, I got that podcast. I wrote you, and you're like, Bobby, I think you need to check your notes again. I looked at my notes, and I said, it says Tuesday, Bobby.
So I thought I went nuts. I thought I went crazy. So.
No. So. I put it in my head Sunday afternoon. I went and watched the baseball game with my brother and my son over his house, and my brother said, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, I got a podcast tomorrow about noon. He goes, that's cool. I put it in my head. That's why.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, probably going to the gym and doing my normal stuff, I was excited, But thank you, Rick. I really do appreciate it, man.
Thank you. And I want everybody to go check, you said Twitter or X rather, and Instagram. Yes. Go follow, go buy the book. You can hear the stories that we're told to hear. However, you're going to hear many, many more. So I want everybody to go check it out. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.